Another question that we get is kind of related to one that we had earlier about the shroud as an apologetic is, can the shroud be considered a relic? Well, this is kind of a controversial thing depending on whether you come from the Catholic or the Protestant side of the fence. The relics are very prominent in the Catholic and Orthodox faith, and yet among Protestants they are dismissed pretty substantially. And so there is this, sometimes among Protestants especially, there is a wholesale rejection of anything that would be considered a relic. And so I want to address this for a minute, because obviously the skepticism, I suppose, of whether a bone is in fact the bone of a saint or a piece of wood is in fact a piece of the cross. We live in a scientific age, so that kind of skepticism is probably understandable. But the uniqueness of the shroud is that it is completely testable. There's nothing else that exists that bears the image of a crucified man that has all of the same wounding pattern as we see as recorded in Scripture. And it's covered with blood stains. We can do textile analysis to see how the cloth was made, where it was made. We've extracted pollen from the shroud to know where the shroud has been. And in fact, there are pollen and even flower images on the cloth to show that it was in Israel at some point in time. The manufacture of the cloth, the actual textile, would suggest that the individual threads are hand spun and hand woven. This is a very ancient cloth. In fact, even the bleaching pattern that we see on the cloth would suggest that it was manufactured in antiquity. And yet we also know that the manufacture of the cloth was doable in first century. So to lump the shroud into just a group of things called relics is really just kind of a silly thing to do. Because, for instance, if we were today to go and find and discover the Ark of the Covenant, somewhere underneath the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, it wouldn't be considered a relic. It would be considered one of the most important archaeological finds ever. And you see, that's the same category or league that the shroud is in, because it is something that is testable. We can do research and analysis on the shroud and find out a lot about it. Now, again, we may not be able to prove absolutely that it's the shroud of Jesus, but we can find out a lot.